Netanyahu denies misleading Trump into Iran war. Quote, I didn't have to convince him, end quote. That's what the headline says. And the report states that the prime minister firmly rejected accusation that he misled or pressured President Trump into launching military action against Iran. Netanyahu stated, quote, does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on, end quote. And he emphasized that Trump made his decisions independently based on what he believed was best for America. He recounted a private meeting at Mar-a-Lago before Trump's second term, where Trump, raised the questions and the concerns about Iran's nuclear program, saying, quote, Bibi, we've got to make sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons, end quote. Netanyahu added, quote, he said that to me. I didn't say it to him, end quote. And noted that in Trump's first term, he withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal without any persuasion from Israel. Watch this.
Hi, Tom Sufi Burridge, ABC News. Prime Minister, given the escalation of attacks on U.S. allies across the Gulf, given the spiraling energy costs, the high costs in general, the U.S. service personnel killed in this war, many Americans are asking that question, whether you misled their government into starting this war, and for how long should Americans keep paying the price?
Well, I misled no one, and I didn't have to convince President Trump about the need to prevent Iran from developing its nuclear program, putting it underground, and being able to launch nuclear-tipped missiles at the United States. He understood that. He explained it to me. I didn't explain it to him. And I think that our partnership is the only way to avoid this catastrophic development.
The prime minister described Iranian leadership as ideological fanatics, and he warned that if they acquired nuclear weapons and the delivery systems, they would pose a danger to the entire world. He praised the close coordination between the U.S. and Israel and said that the world, quote, owes a debt of deep indebtedness, end quote, to Trump for confronting Iran. Netanyahu just shut down the conspiracy nonsense. He didn't have to convince President Trump to confront Iran. President Trump made that decision on his own because he saw the threat to America. Yet, there are still voices in MAGA pushing the ugly lie that Israel controls Trump or that Netanyahu is pulling his strings. I kind of talk, it isn't just wrong. I think it's classic anti-Semitic conspiracy garbage dressed up as America first. People like Tucker Carlson, I think, have been feeding this poison, claiming the Iran conflict is somehow a Jewish plot or a religious war for the Third Temple. And sadly, it's not going to help the America First or MAGA movement at all. We can't let the anti-Semites and infiltrators divide Americans, particularly with baseless attacks. Trump, he puts America first. He always has. So it's time to reject this toxic narrative. Call out the anti-Semitism for what it is. Stay united on the real threats facing our country. And that's many things, but that includes Islam, both here on the homeland and abroad. An article from Zero Hedge and the Washington Examiner reports that the United States is drastically escalating its military presence in the Middle East, deploying thousands of Marines and sailors while launching an aggressive sea lane offensive in the Strait of Hormuz. This is amid the ongoing war with Iran, obviously. The Pentagon has accelerated the deployment of the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit aboard the USS Boxer and up to 2 additional ships from San Diego, adding approximately 2,200 to 4,000 more Marines and sailors to the region. This follows another recent deployment of 5,000 Marines from the Japan-based USS Tripoli. U.S. warplanes and Apache helicopters, they have begun operations over the Strait of Hormuz with low-flying attack jets that are targeting Iranian naval vessels and helicopters shooting down Iranian drones, all in an effort to reopen the critical waterway. President Trump is reportedly considering high-intensity actions, including potential operations to seize Iran's Karg Island oil hub. That's, if necessary, in order to force the strait back open. The move comes as Iranian attacks have reduced commercial traffic in the strait to a trickle, threatening, of course, the global energy supplies. An article from Yahoo News is entitled, "Iran's Most Powerful Weapon is Not a Drone, Missile, or Mine." The article is by Tim Marshall, and he reports that Iran's greatest asset in the current conflict is not its arsenal of drones, missiles, or mines, but actually the Strait of Hormuz itself. The narrow waterway, it carries roughly 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas supplies. Iran has effectively shut it down through threats and attacks on commercial shipping, holding the global economy hostage. The article explains that the strait's geography is as such, only 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, with a 2-mile shipping channel in each direction, combined with shallow waters near the Iranian coast. Then you add in the hidden coves and rocky islands, making it extremely difficult for the U.S. Navy to clear and secure. Iran, they can hide fast attack boats, drones, and anti-ship missiles in caves and tunnels, turning the entire area into a natural fortress. A former commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps once warned, quote, "We will make the enemy understand that either everyone can use the Strait of Hormuz or no one," end quote. The piece, it warns that even if the U.S. and its allies try to escort tankers through the strait, insurance costs would skyrocket, oil prices would surge, and they would surge dramatically, according to some analysts. And the operation, well, it could drag on for months, some even say years. But of course, we'll watch and report. An article from ABC News is entitled, "Multiple Waves of Unauthorized Drones Recently Spotted Over Strategic U.S. Air Force Bases." It reports that Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana, which of course is home to long-range B-52 bombers and is a key hub for U.S. Air Force Nuclear Command and Control, they were targeted by multiple waves of unauthorized drones. According to a confidential internal briefing document that was reviewed by ABC News, between 12 and 15 drones operated over sensitive areas of the base, including the flight line, for roughly 4 hours each day. The drones displayed non-commercial signal characteristics, long-range control links, and resistance to jamming. They entered the area and then exited the base in deliberate patterns that appeared designed to avoid detection and test security responses. A shelter-in-place order was issued on March 9th after the initial sighting, and it was later lifted. But drone activity continued for several more days. Captain Hunter Reiniger of the 2nd Bomb Wing, he confirmed the incidents, and he stated that the base is indeed working with federal and local law enforcement. ABC News has a contributor by the name of Mick Mulroy, and he's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. He said the activity appeared, quote, deliberate and intentional, end quote, rather than the work of an average hobbyist. The FAA and Louisiana State Police are assisting in this investigation. Now we turn to an article from the New York Times. It's entitled, Russia-Iran Partnership. It reports that Russia and Iran have dramatically deepened their military, economic, and diplomatic ties in recent weeks, forming what officials describe as a full strategic partnership amid the ongoing war with the United States and Israel. According to U.S. and Israeli intelligence assessments, Russia has begun supplying Iran with advanced air defense components, electronic warfare systems, and satellite intelligence, all in the goal of helping Tehran counter American and Israeli strikes. In return, Iran has increased shipments of Shahad-style kamikaze drones and ballistic missile components to Russia for use in Ukraine. The two countries are also coordinating on oil sales, with Russia helping Iran evade Western sanctions through shadow tanker fleets and joint financial mechanisms. Senior Iranian officials, they have told the Russian counterparts they view the partnership as irreversible. And Russian President Vladimir Putin, he has privately described Iran as a, quote, key partner in the new multipolar order, end quote. The article notes that this alliance is causing alarm in Washington and Jerusalem, as it gives both nations greater staying power and the ability to sustain prolonged conflicts against the West. An article from CNBC is entitled, Trump invokes emergency powers with $23 billion in Gulf arms sales as Iran war wages on. The article reports that the Trump administration has approved roughly $23 billion in weapon sales to the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Jordan, all in an attempt to bolster their defenses amid this escalating war with Iran. The package includes more than $16 billion for air defense systems, munitions, and radar equipment for the three countries, plus an additional $7 billion in weapons specifically for the UAE. Some of the deals were approved using the emergency clause of U.S. arms export law, thus bypassing the standard 30-day congressional review period. Specific systems include Patriot PAC-3 missiles. They're valued at $5.6 billion, and CH-47 Chinook helicopters, worth about $1.32 billion. The State Department stated that the sales would improve the country's ability to, quote, meet current and future threats, end quote, and enhance interoperability with U.S. forces. The move, it comes as Iran has expanded attacks on regional energy infrastructures, all in retaliation for American and Israeli strikes. The Trump administration moved quickly to try to strengthen the Gulf partners and their capabilities for self-defense. An article from Ynet News is entitled, Missile Strike Lands Near Temple Mount as Iran Targets Jerusalem. And the headline also includes this, Trump blasts NATO as paper tiger. The article reports that an Iranian missile struck approximately 350 meters from the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. That was during Iran's 8th barrage of the day. Smoke rose over the city with no injuries reported at the holy site. Police, border police, and bomb disposal units, they searched for impact sites and fragments. The strike occurred hours after Israel closed the Al-Aqsa compound to worshipers. That's the first such closure since 1967, due, of course, to the home front command restrictions. Watch this. Missiles also hit central and northern Israel, where a home caught fire, vehicles were damaged, and several people were injured by blast effects. Sirens, they sounded across Galilee, central Israel, Jerusalem, and the Dan region. Some missiles, they carried separating warheads. The IDF, for their part, they continued operations, striking over 2,000 Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon, including command centers, weapons depots, and missile launchers. In response to NATO countries not assisting the U.S. and Israel and Iran, well, President Donald Trump, he didn't hold back at all. He posted on Truth Social, quote, without the USA, NATO is a paper tiger. They didn't want to join the fight to stop a nuclear-powered Iran. Now that fight is militarily won, with very little danger for them. They complain about the high oil prices they are forced to pay, but don't want to help open the Strait of Hormuz. Cowards. And we will remember, end quote.